Hello everyone, this is JenTalk 1. Our focus in this topic today is the importance of narrowing down your research topic. This is absolutely critical as you begin to focus on doing original or empirical research. As much as we'd like to solve the world's problems in just a few weeks, we really have to start from a manageable bite-sized space. Let's first start by talking about what we mean by empirical research. Unlike most research that you've completed so far in your program and in your previous courses in this program, this is a bit different. You've done literature reviews and you may have done some primary source reviews, but you haven't yet had a chance to do your own empirical research. Empirical research involves you studying and directly assessing a specific topic. So you will formulate questions, you will go out and collect the data, and you will analyze the data. And all of that will be grounded in scientific theory. You'll have actionable research questions and hypotheses that can be proven or disproven. Those are in quotes because when we deal with the human services and social sciences, it's difficult to say that anything is 100% proven or disproven, but things can be statistically significant or they can lead to trends that are statistically significant or relevant in society. One research study is not your life's work. Each is a small step in the direction of your life's work if you choose to continue to do research. So please keep that in mind. I find that students frequently, when they take their first real research methods class where they're writing a proposal about something that they care about deeply, they want to solve all of the problems and all of the issues related to that topic. And it's hard for them to let go of aspects of that topic that they can't serve, that they can't solve, or that just make it too much for any one person or one team of researchers to complete in one project. Your goal is to choose a topic that you can tackle in just a few weeks, especially if you hope to use your proposal to submit to CSUN's IRB, which we'll talk about in another JenTalk, so that you can actually complete your empirical research and analyze and report on that data for your final class, ATHS 697. So let's talk about narrowing it down. It's tempting to solve, as I mentioned before, a big problem or answer a very complex question in one foul swoop. We really want to know the answers and fix problems and change programs if that's what you're doing, if you're doing an evaluation, or understand what is going on with something that's complex and compelling and important. And we are always tempted to try to do it all at once. I need to caution you not to do that. I'll be reminding you of that over and over again. Most of you, when you submit your papers, will get comments from me saying, can you narrow it down even more? This will lead to failure if you don't. Start with a general topic and narrow it to something you can tackle in one investigation. You may think you know what your general topic is. You may even successfully narrow it a bit and then find through your literature review that you'd like to go in another direction. That's fine, as long as you're narrowing and not broadening, and you can clearly draw lines to where your topic leads so that it's very clear what it is that you want to learn in this particular study. When your study is completed, do the next one, and so on. This is how you tackle the larger problem. This is how you make it your life's work, one step or one bite at a time. Tackling several variables, very broad questions, and unique ideas, especially ideas that have not been explored much in the past, in just one investigation can make it very difficult, oftentimes impossible, to know what's really going on. If you have variable A, B, and C, and you want to see how they impact circumstance or variables X, Y, and Z, and you have not yet learned how to control for some of the factors that are intermingling, you may actually end up with spurious or false results because you had too much going on at once. The most sound study will give you the opportunity to really narrow in and focus on, did A have an impact on X? How did A and B, when they work together, impact X? So we're really going to focus on narrowing it down. Here are some examples. People with disabilities are more likely to be overweight and unfit. We know that this is true. Therefore, a student might say, I'd like to make exercise equipment at gyms accessible for people with disabilities. Great topic. First thing I'm going to say to that student, and have in the past, is, what do you mean by exercise equipment? The weights, the elliptical machines, the rowers, the yoga mats? What specifically do we mean by exercise equipment? What about gyms? All gyms? Are you going to study every gym in your neighborhood? Might they have different systems, different types of equipment, different cultures in which that may impact or foster students or people with disabilities when they go into those gyms? And what about this topic of people with disabilities? Any disability, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities? Are they wheelchair bound? Are they blind? Are they visually impaired? Are they deaf? We need to get specific. So I would ask students to come up with something very specific. For example, looking at elliptical machines in one local gym for people who are blind or visually impaired. What can we do to improve that circumstance? Why don't they use them, and what types of things can we do to improve that? It's just one type of thing. It's just one disability, but it's a start in the right direction. Here's another example. The AT abandonment rate among teens is the highest of any age group. That probably comes as no surprise to most of you when you think about teenagers and the likelihood that they'll hang on to any one thing for any length of time, let alone a device that they're told they need to help them. Teenagers are infallible. They don't need anything. Here's a student group that says we want to create AT devices for teens that they will not abandon. Great topic. You're probably all going, yeah, I'd like to know. I have a kid, or I want to have kids someday, or I had one, and I can't imagine how that might have worked. Or maybe you work in schools and can completely see how this would be problematic. First of all, we want to create AT devices. What kinds of AT devices? Are we going to focus on all kinds of assistive technology devices that students might use? Or might we focus on just insulin pumps for students who have diabetes, or devices that are connected to cochlear implants for students who are deaf or hard of hearing? The list goes on. Focus on one. Let's say you chose insulin pumps. Insulin pumps for teens. Teens age 13 to 19. Are we looking at middle school, high school, or college? Or can we narrow that down? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you think you're going to do 13 to 19, and you get into the literature review and you realize developmentally there's a category of students, probably at the end of middle school, early high school, maybe it's 14 to 16, who really are the most likely to abandon for specific reasons, like they're embarrassed that their peers see them with a specific kind of AT device. And then as they get older and mature, they're less likely to abandon. So you choose that developmental age of 14 to 16, or maybe it's 8th through 10th grade. And then you have to figure out what it is that you're going to do to make them not abandon those items. That will come out of your literature review. Maybe you create devices that look like mobile phones so that their peers think that they're just playing with their mobile phones. Or maybe it's actually an app on the mobile phone that they use that's connected to their insulin pump or that cochlear implant. Those are ways in which we can get focused and test devices or solutions. The last example. More college students today have learning and other cognitive disabilities. These students are struggling academically at a disproportionate rate compared to students without cognitive disabilities. This research group said we want to create a system for college students with cognitive disorders that assist them in succeeding in school. This is a great topic. As a higher ed administrator and a parent of a 16-year-old, I can see so many applications to this. It almost feels like it could revolutionize higher education if someone can do this. It's a lifelong topic. How do we narrow it down? We want to create a system. What do we mean by a system? Do we want to create a set of behavioral tools that students are taught so that they can learn to follow certain steps, and through that system of behaviors they can improve their academic motivation and their academic success because they stay organized or because they can keep track of things that otherwise they couldn't? Or maybe you want to create an app that's on an iPhone or an iPad or a smartphone. Or maybe there is some other AT device that is a part of that system that they would use, and it would help them implement something that you've discovered would be good to test. And then college students, all college students, incoming freshmen, returning students over the age of 25, undergraduates, graduates, I would ask you to narrow it and focus on a particular population of students. I might decide to do undergraduate students under the age of 25, just to focus on a developmental area in those first 4 to 6 years of school in which students are really trying to learn study skills, time management, etc. Then we're talking about cognitive disorders. What do you mean? People with dyslexia? People with ADHD? People with traumatic brain injury? anyone with a cognitive disorder at your college's center for students with disabilities, or do you want to get specific and maybe focus first on ADHD? There may be something in the literature that tells you, because there are more and more students graduating from high school and finding their way into college who have been diagnosed with ADHD, we really want to focus on that population that is in a great deal of need that has not yet been addressed in the research. So you're really going to focus it to specific topics, and then you have to define what you mean by succeeding in school. Do you mean earning A's? Do you mean not dropping out? Do you mean not failing classes? Do you mean how they feel about how they're doing in school? You'll have to define that as well. So let's summarize. Choose something you're passionate about. That will help you narrow it. It'll also make it painful when you narrow it, but you'll care enough to do what you need to do to get to the bottom of your problem. Explore why you care so much. Why is it that this was compelling to you? Your research projects are going to drive you crazy. At some point, you're going to hate them. You have to care deeply so that you can pick them back up again when you're done being frustrated. Why do you care so much? What is it about it beyond just your own gut reaction that makes you want to make this change? Also, you'll explore, what do we know that makes it compelling to study this topic? Why is your study important? What's out there in the literature that we already know? Then, what are the gaps in service or in devices or in the research? So we know A and B, but we don't know some other things that you're interested in. Maybe they've studied students with traumatic brain injury and their success in school and dyslexia, but ADHD has been underrepresented in the research. Then you know you have a gap, and your topic that was more broad is more compelling to you and those who will review your proposal and read your research later. So choose a topic like that that you can really show is something that no one else has studied in the same way before. Make sure in doing this, you will let people know why they should care. This will keep you excited about your topic, even as you've narrowed it down to something smaller than what you may have originally planned. This will also lead to your statement of the problem and purpose of your research, which will be in the introduction chapter of your proposal, and we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. Narrow it to something that you can measure. If you're looking at everything under the sun, how are you going to grapple with that? Data collection might be done via surveys, observing behaviors or observing environments. Maybe you're using experiments, and there are other research methods that we'll talk about. But imagine doing it, looking at it, watching it, observing it, collecting data, looking at that data and analyzing it. Make sure it's something that you can really tackle yourself. You're ready when you have a project you can tackle.